I never thought I'd be that guy, the one whose wife cheats on him. I always considered my marriage with Sarah solid as a rock. We met in college, fell in love, and by the time we hit our late 20s, we were living what I thought was the American dream. Nice house in a decent neighborhood, a dog named Max, and a seemingly happy life. But recently, things started to feel off. We'd been together for 5 years, and while I loved her fiercely, I noticed subtle changes. Sarah had started working longer hours at her marketing job, often coming home late. At first, I tried to be supportive, thinking she was just climbing the corporate ladder. She'd come home exhausted, and I just assumed the stress was part of it. But then came the little things, the random texts at odd hours, her sudden obsession with her phone, and the way she'd quickly hide it when I walked into the room. The laughter she shared over the phone sounded different, more flirtatious than ever before. One night she promised to be home by 8 p.m. for dinner. I made her favorite meal, chicken Alfredo and garlic bread, complete with a glass of red wine waiting for her. But 8 p.m. came and went. I called and texted, but no response. It was past 10 p.m. when I finally received a message. Stuck at work, I'm so sorry. I could hear the frustration in her voice even through the text. I tried to shrug it off, but a nagging feeling started to gnaw at me. Then the discovery hit me like a punch to the gut. It was a Saturday morning, and I was still in bed when I got a notification on my phone. It was a security alert from our home camera. I opened the app half asleep, and there it was, a video of Sarah leaving the house at 2 a.m. the previous night. I squinted at the screen, hoping it was some kind of mistake. The evidence was right there. My wife, dressed to the nines, stepping out of our front door, looking back nervously as if she was afraid of being caught. I felt a cold sweat running down my back. I had been lying beside her in bed just hours before. The disbelief and anger surged through me, making my heart pound. My mind raced, questioning everything I thought I knew about our life together. I had to confront her. I had to know what was really going on. When she strolled through the door that afternoon, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me, I was waiting. "Where were you last night?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. She looked shocked, her eyes wide as if I had slapped her. "What do you mean?" she replied, feigning innocence. I held my phone up, showing her the video. "You left the house at 2 a.m., Sarah. Don't lie to me." Her expression changed quickly, the surprise morphing into irritation. "Oh, please, you're not seriously going to believe that stupid thing," she huffed, rolling her eyes. "I went to a friend's house to help her with a project. You know how these things go." Her voice dripped with condescension, as if I were a child being scolded for asking a silly question. The anger inside me began to boil over. "A friend? You expect me to believe that? What's her name, Sarah?" I pressed, my voice rising. She shrugged dismissively, and I could see she was backpedaling, trying to come up with a believable excuse. "It was just a late night, okay? I didn't think it was a big deal." Her tone was defensive, but I could sense the cracks starting to show. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer betrayal of her words. The emotional impact of this moment began crashing over me like a wave. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the pain I was feeling. Instead, I felt the crushing weight of disappointment in my chest. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so easily? The trust that had been the cornerstone of our relationship was crumbling before my eyes. This was just the beginning of the emotional journey I was about to embark on. The anger was raw, but underneath it lay an overwhelming sense of sadness and betrayal that I couldn't easily shake off. In that moment, I realized my world was about to change in ways I hadn't anticipated. I had to figure out a way to deal with this new reality, and it wasn't going to be easy. I just needed to know one thing: how far this betrayal really went. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions that I couldn't quite grasp. I was stuck in this loop of anger, disbelief, and heartache. Sarah's excuses continued to spiral, each more implausible than the last. "It was just a work event," she would say, trying to downplay my concerns. "You know how the industry is. Sometimes we have to network late." But each time she opened her mouth, I felt the distance between us grow wider. I spent hours replaying that security footage in my mind, trying to piece together the fragments of her late-night adventures. It felt like I was living in a detective novel, and I was the protagonist trying to solve the crime of my shattered trust. I started keeping tabs on her behavior, watching for any signs of infidelity. Every late night at work became an accusation in my mind. Every text and phone call felt like it could be a conversation with her lover. The paranoia was suffocating. Then came the real bombshell, an unexpected piece of evidence that would shatter the tiny trust I had left. I had a rare day off and decided to surprise Sarah at her office. I thought maybe a lunch date would help alleviate some of the tension between us. As I drove, my stomach churned with nerves, but I was still hopeful. Perhaps the surprise would rekindle our flame, help her feel appreciated. When I arrived, I noticed her car was in the parking lot, but her office looked eerily quiet. I thought I would find her in her cubicle working away. Instead, I spotted her through the glass walls of the conference room, laughing and leaning into a guy I had never seen before. I squinted, trying to see if my eyes were deceiving me. But there they were, her hand resting on his shoulder, her laughter ringing out like a siren call. That was it. The dam broke. I stormed into the building, my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through me. I didn't care about the possible consequences. I pushed the conference room door open, startling them mid-laugh. Sarah's face went pale when she saw me, and the guy, well, he just looked confused, probably wondering who this angry stranger was. "What's going on here, Sarah?" I demanded, my voice low but fierce. She stood up quickly, brushing her hair back nervously. "It's not what it looks like," she blurted out, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The guy glanced between us, clearly unsure whether he should stay or go. I shot him a look of pure rage. "You should leave," I said, my voice steady. He didn't need to be part of this twisted mess. He hurried out of the room, and I turned to face Sarah, who was now visibly trembling. "You're cheating on me, aren't you?" I accused, the anger boiling over. "This guy isn't just a coworker." "No, it's not like that," she protested, her voice rising in pitch. "We were just discussing a project, you know how it is." But that hollow excuse felt flimsy in the face of what I had just witnessed. The laughter that had seemed innocent moments before now felt like a cruel joke. I didn't care about her excuses anymore. My heart was in freefall. I stepped closer, feeling the heat radiating off my skin. "Don't lie to me, Sarah. I saw you. You were all over him." Her eyes darted around the room, not meeting mine, as if searching for an escape route. "It was just a friendly moment," she finally shouted defensively. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "No," I replied, my voice hardening. "You're the one blowing this out of proportion. You're the one who's been lying to me." The confrontation turned into a shouting match. Each accusation I hurled felt like a dagger aimed straight at her heart, and I could see the walls she'd built around her began to crumble. But she didn't retreat gracefully. Instead, she lashed out, calling me insecure and paranoid. "You're imagining things. You always think the worst of me," she yelled, her voice echoing through the empty halls of the office. I was done. I couldn't take her lies anymore. The emotional roller coaster was exhausting, and I had reached my breaking point. I stormed out of the office building, my chest heaving with anger, confusion, and hurt. As I drove back home, the tears came unbidden, a flood of pent-up grief spilling over. I had trusted Sarah wholeheartedly, and in that moment I felt utterly betrayed. I couldn't believe I was married to someone who would so easily deceive me. The emotional impact of her actions hit me hard, and I knew I had to make a choice moving forward. My heart ached with the weight of the truth, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to contemplate my next steps carefully, but one thing was certain: I wouldn't let this go unanswered. I had to figure out how to reclaim my dignity, even if it meant tearing down the life we had built together. The question was, how exactly was I going to do that? The drive home felt like it took an eternity. My mind was racing, and I replayed the confrontation with Sarah over and over. Each time, I felt a different wave of emotion crash over me: anger, sadness, confusion, betrayal. By the time I walked through the door of our home, the place that had once felt warm and inviting now felt like a prison, a place tainted by deception. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and stared around at the walls that held so many memories of laughter and love. I couldn't reconcile that image with the harsh reality I was facing now. I needed gather my thoughts to formulate a plan, but everything felt jumbled and chaotic. Max, our golden retriever, trotted over, wagging his tail as if sensing the turmoil inside me. I knelt down to pet him, grateful for his unconditional love, even if it only reminded me how alone I felt. I spent the rest of the day avoiding Sarah, who returned home hours later, blissfully ignorant of the storm brewing inside me. She walked into the house, bubbly and cheerful, like nothing had happened. "Hey, I was thinking we could order pizza for dinner. What do you think?" she said, oblivious to the fact that I was still processing the reality of her betrayal. I felt a surge of anger rise up again. How could she act like everything was normal? I couldn't find the words to confront her again, not in that moment. I needed to be strategic. I was not ready to unleash every pent-up feeling. I needed to take a step back, to think clearly so I could decide how to move forward. After a long, silent dinner, where I forced myself to eat while my mind was screaming at me to confront her, I retreated to the bedroom. I knew I had to devise a plan for exposing her lies and figuring out how to handle the fallout. I started by gathering evidence. What else could I find to solidify my suspicions? I needed to reestablish the power dynamic that had so abruptly shifted when I discovered her betrayal. Over the next few days, I became a ninja, a ghost flitting around our house. I started paying closer attention to her phone, which had become her lifeline. When she left her device unattended, I'd sneak a peek, scrolling through her texts and social media messages. I felt like a voyeur, invading her privacy, but I justified it as a way to seek the truth. I'd find flirty texts and even some suggestive messages that made my stomach churn. The worst was seeing her plan a secret meetup with someone named Jake, a name I had never heard before. It was clear who this person was. She had been meeting him behind my back. Each new piece of evidence I uncovered fueled my anger, but it also ignited a sense of determination. I was no longer just a husband. Now, I was a man wronged, and I wanted to make sure she understood the depth of her betrayal. After a week of gathering information, I decided it was time to execute my plan. I couldn't let her continue to lie and manipulate me. I needed to confront her with the undeniable evidence. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand how deeply she had hurt me. That Saturday, I devised the perfect setting. I waited until the evening when she'd be home from work and set the mood. I dimmed the lights, poured 2 glasses of wine, and tried to maintain an air of calm. I wanted to catch her off guard, but I also wanted her to feel comfortable enough to talk openly. I needed to give her a chance to confess, to admit what I already knew. When she walked in, she smiled, clearly unaware of the storm that was about to hit. "Wow, it looks nice in here," she exclaimed, walking over to the table. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion, just wanted to have a little chat," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. As she sat down, I could see the curiosity mixed with a hint of anxiety flicker across her face. "Okay, what's up?" she asked, taking a sip of her wine as if trying to calm her nerves. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "Sarah, I've been doing some thinking and some digging." I watched her stiffen at my words, and I knew I had her attention. "I know about Jake." The name hung in the air between us, thick and heavy. Her expression shifted instantly, panic etched across her features. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice shaking slightly. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages I had saved. "You think I wouldn't find out? You've been texting him, setting up secret meetups behind my back." I held my phone out for her to see, my heart pounding in my chest, almost daring her to deny it. Her face turned pale as she read the messages. Okay. Yes, I've been talking to him, but it's not what you think." She quickly backtracked, her voice rising in desperation. "Not what I think." I echoed incredulously. "You're having an emotional affair, Sarah. You're lying to my face while pretending everything is fine." She stammered, trying to come up with excuses, but I interrupted her. "I want the truth. I deserve that much after everything." The emotional impact of this moment weighed heavily in the room. I could see her scrambling, trying to find the right words, but there was no escaping the reality of her choices. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment where I would force her to confront her actions. But amidst the chaos of anger, hurt, and betrayal, I realized that what I really wanted was closure. I needed to understand why she had chosen this path, why our love hadn't been enough. As she continued to plead her case, I knew this confrontation was just the beginning of a long journey ahead. I was determined to fight for my dignity, but I also wanted to uncover the truth of our relationship's demise. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions, and for me to decide what I would do next. The confrontation escalated as Sarah's excuses tumbled out, one more ridiculous than the last. "Jake's just a friend. We were talking about work, not that it's any of your business," she insisted. "You don't understand how stressful my job has been. I needed someone to talk to." Each denial felt like a slap in the face. I felt the anger boiling inside me, but also a desperate sadness for the woman I thought I knew. "You think I'm going to buy that?" I shot back, my voice steady but filled with disappointment. "You've been meeting him behind my back, and you don't think I deserve the truth." Her eyes were now darting around the room, looking for an escape or maybe a way to spin the narrative back in her favor. "You're overreacting," she exclaimed, her voice rising again. "I can't believe you would accuse me of this. You've changed so much in the last year and you don't even see it." That was heavy and it struck me deep. There was a truth to her words. I had changed. I was no longer the trusting partner I used to be, but could it really justify her actions? I tried to stay focused on the present. "We're not talking about me right now, Sarah. We're talking about you and how you've betrayed me." I could see her frustration morphing into anger. "Fine, maybe I did talk to him, but I wasn't cheating. I mean, it's not like we slept together or anything." The words hit me like a bullet, and suddenly everything became crystal clear. "So you did sleep with him?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper as the realization settled in. Her silence was deafening, and I felt my heart drop. "I know, it was just emotional. Connected on a level you and I haven't in a while. You don't listen to me anymore," she replied, her voice shaky. "You've been so absorbed in your own world, and I felt lonely." "Lonely?" I echoed, incredulous. "You chose to betray me instead of talking to me. You chose to deceive me rather than seeking help." My heart raced as I continued to process the depth of her betrayal. The emotional impact was suffocating, but I needed to keep my focus. "I didn't think it was that big of a deal," she insisted. "It's just a mistake. Can't we work through this? Can we?" I countered, my voice still steady but filled with anxiety. "How can I ever trust you again? You've made your choice, Sarah. You've chosen to betray our marriage, and that's something I don't know if I can forgive." Her expression shifted to one of desperation. "Please, let's not throw everything away over this. I'll do anything to fix it. We can go to counseling, try to work it out." The offer hung in the air, a lifeline of sorts, but I could feel the walls closing in. "You don't get it," I said, my voice heavy with sadness. "I don't know if I want to fix this. I don't know if I can." Sarah's face crumpled, and I could see the panic in her eyes as she realized the gravity of our situation. "You can't mean that. We've built everything together, our life, our dreams." "Life, dreams," I scoffed, shaking my head. "You shattered that the moment you chose to lie and sneak around. You've broken the foundation of our relationship. I don't even know who you are anymore." The words hurt both of us, and I watched as tears filled her eyes. "I'm still me," she cried. "I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I'm still your Sarah." I wanted to reach for her, to comfort her, but I felt paralyzed by the betrayal. "Love doesn't excuse infidelity, Sarah. You've made your choices, and now I have to make mine." As I spoke those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had finally taken a stand, but the aftermath of that stand threatened to crush me. I could see her crumbling in front of me, the facade she had built crumbling like glass. I knew I was breaking her heart, but in that moment I understood that I couldn't allow her to manipulate me anymore. "I need space," I finally told her, the words painful to utter. "I need to think about what I want moving forward." Sarah's tears flowed freely now, and the desperation in her voice was palpable. "Please don't do this. I'll change. I swear I'll change." But I was resolute. "You've made your bed, Sarah. I won't share my life with someone who can't be honest with me. I need time to process everything." I walked out of the room, leaving her sobbing on the couch. I felt hollow, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over me. It was a strange dissonance, the feeling of finally standing up for myself while also grappling with the loss of the woman I had once loved so deeply. In the days that followed, I found myself wrapping my head around the reality of my situation. I had to consider my options, whether to fight for the shattered pieces of our marriage or to walk away from a love that felt irrevocably broken. I spent hours reflecting on our relationship, weighing the good against the bad, searching for clarity amid the chaos. But as the sun set on another day, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever decision I made, I had to prioritize my own well-being. I couldn't allow myself to be a victim of her choices any longer. It was time to reclaim my life, but I still needed to figure out what that would look like. As the days turned into a week, I found myself in a strange limbo. Sarah and I were living in the same house, sharing the same space, but it felt like we were worlds apart. She had shifted from pleading for forgiveness to trying to ignore the elephant in the room. I could feel her watching me, waiting for a sign that I might forgive her, but I had made my decision. I needed to take control of my life again. I began distancing myself emotionally and physically. I threw myself into work, spending late hours at the office to escape the tension at home. I wasn't avoiding Sarah because I still cared. I was avoiding her to protect myself from the pain. Each time I thought about her, I felt the wound open again, raw and fresh. My heart ached with betrayal, and I knew I had to prioritize my own healing. During this time, I reached out to a close friend, Mike, who had always been there through thick and thin. We known each other since college, and he had been my rock during tough times. I needed someone to talk to who wouldn't judge me but would help me see the bigger picture. Over drinks one night, I shared everything: the confrontations, the lies, and the betrayal. Mike listened intently, occasionally nodding as I recounted the painful moments that had unfolded in my life. "Dude, that's brutal," he said after I finished my tale. "You deserve better than this. I know it hurts, but you need to think about yourself now. What do you want?" That was the million-dollar question. What did I want? I had spent so long focused on Sarah and our marriage that I had lost sight of my own needs. I needed to reclaim my identity, to rediscover who I was outside of our relationship. "I think I need to leave," I admitted, the words feeling foreign yet liberating. "I can't stay in a situation where trust has been destroyed. I don't even know if I can look at her without feeling sick." Mike nodded, clearly understanding the weight of my decision. "It's okay to feel that way. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from what's hurting you. You deserve to be happy, man. Whatever you choose, make sure it's for you." The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions as I made plans to move out. I found a small apartment close to work, a space where I could reclaim my independence. Leaving the house felt like cutting a cord that had bound me for so long. I meticulously packed my belongings, each item a reminder of the life I had built, now stained by betrayal. When the day came for me to leave, Sarah was at work. I took advantage of the quiet to gather my things and clean out the shared spaces. As I loaded my car, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I remembered the happy moments we had shared, but those memories felt overshadowed by the pain of her infidelity. Just as I was about to drive away, I received a text from her. "Can we talk tonight? I really want to apologize and explain everything." My heart raced, torn between a desire for closure and the instinct to protect myself further from her manipulation. I debated for a moment before deciding to go through with it. I owed it to myself to hear her out. When I arrived back at the house later that evening, Sarah was already waiting for me. The tension in the air was palpable. "You're really leaving, aren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded, trying to maintain my resolve. "I think it's for the best, Sarah. I need to take care of myself right now." She looked devastated, tears welling in her eyes. "I know I messed up, but I can change. I love you and I don't want to lose you." "Love doesn't excuse what you did," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "You chose to betray my trust, and that's something I can't overlook. I've spent too long trying to forgive and forget, and I need to move forward." The sadness on her face was crushing, but I couldn't allow myself to feel pity for her. I had to stay focused on my own healing. "I need time and space, and I don't want to keep going back and forth with you." Sarah nodded, clearly broken, but I could see the flicker of understanding in her eyes. "I get it, I really do. I wish I could take it all back. I just didn't realize how much I could hurt you." "Neither did I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "But this is what you chose." I need to do what's best for my own heart right. Now, as I turned to leave, she stepped forward, reaching for my arm. "Please don't hate me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I looked into her eyes, searching for any remnants of the woman I had loved, but all I could see was the betrayal. "I don't hate you, Sarah. I just can't be with you anymore." With that, I walked out of the house for the last time. I felt a strange sense of finality wash over me as I drove away. I was moving forward, reclaiming my life after the betrayal that had rocked my world. The emotional impact was still raw, but I knew this was a necessary step toward healing. As I settled into my new apartment, I took a deep breath and slowly began to unpack. I realized I was no longer defined by my relationship. I was finally free to rediscover who I was and what I wanted in life. It was a daunting journey ahead, but I was ready to embark on it. I wouldn't allow Sarah's choices to dictate my happiness any longer. I was determined to rebuild and create a life that reflected my worth, filled with love, trust, and respect. The road to healing might be long, but I was finally ready to walk it. The first few weeks in the apartment felt surreal. I was surrounded by boxes and mismatched furniture, but it was my space, free of tension, free of betrayal. Each morning, I would wake up and remind myself that I was starting fresh. I took solace in the small things: the sunlight streaming through the window, the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen, and the quiet moments of peace that had eluded me for so long. I began to establish a new routine. Work kept me busy, and I began to reconnect with friends I hadn't seen in ages. Mike was a constant support, always encouraging me to get out there and enjoy life again. "You deserve happiness," he would say, pushing me to meet new people and explore my interests. One evening, he invited me to a local bar for trivia night. "Come on, it'll be fun. You can't sit in that apartment forever," he urged. I hesitated, still feeling the weight of my recent heartbreak, but I ultimately agreed. I needed to step outside my comfort zone and remind myself that life could still be enjoyable. As I walked into the bar, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. The place was packed with laughter and chatter, and I could see groups of friends gathered around tables. But as the night wore on and I joined in on the trivia teams, the laughter started to ease my mind. I found myself engaging with new people, making light-hearted jokes, and laughing at the trivia questions that were impossibly obscure. That night I met Jenna. She was warm and funny, with an infectious smile that drew me in. We connected instantly over our shared love for random facts and terrible puns. There was something about her that made the world seem a little brighter, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. As the weeks passed, Jenna and I began to see each other more frequently. With each date, I felt the walls I had built around my heart gradually come down. She was kind and patient, allowing me to share my story without judgment. I appreciated how she never pushed me to open up more than I was ready. 2. I realized that I didn't have to carry the weight of Sarah's betrayal any longer. I was learning to trust again, not just in others but in myself. But even as I moved forward, I occasionally felt pangs of nostalgia for the life I had with Sarah. Some days, memories would sneak in uninvited, moments of laughter, love, and happiness. I would find myself staring blankly at the wall, remembering how easy it had once felt. But those memories were quickly overshadowed by the realization of what I had endured. Sarah's choices had led to our demise, and I refused to let those memories define my future. I spent time reflecting on the lessons learned from my relationship with Sarah. I learned that communication is key, that love should never come with strings attached. I also learned to value myself more than I had before. I didn't need to be someone's second choice or live in the shadow of betrayal. I was worthy of a love that was genuine and respectful. Eventually, I decided to confront Sarah one last time. I wanted closure, to clear the air once and for all. After a few months apart, I reached out to her. "Can we talk?" I texted, my heart pounding as I pressed send. When we met, it was awkward at first. Sarah looked different, worn and regretful, the weight of her choices hanging heavily on her shoulders. "I'm sorry for everything," she began, her voice trembling. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you left, and I realized how much I took for granted." I nodded, allowing her to speak. I understand that I hurt you, and I can't believe I let things go so far. I never meant to destroy what we had." Her words felt genuine, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, but I also felt the distance that had grown between us. "I appreciate that," I replied, my voice calm. "But I can't overlook what happened. I need to prioritize my own happiness now." Tears welled in her eyes, and I could see the regret etched on her face. "I get it. I wish things had been different, but I understand why you had to leave. I just hope you find what you're looking for." As we parted ways, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. I had finally let go of the anger and hurt. It was time to embrace the future, to take the lessons learned from my past and apply them to my new life. In the weeks that followed, Jenna and I grew closer, and I found myself genuinely smiling again. I was finally living for myself, rediscovering who I was outside of a relationship that had once defined me. I knew I still had healing to do, but I felt stronger every day. Ultimately, my experience had taught me that love is a two-way street, built on trust and communication. I learned that it was okay to prioritize my own needs and desires, and that true happiness comes from within. My heart had been shattered, but I was piecing it back together, one day at a time. As I looked out at the city skyline from my new apartment, I felt a sense of hope for the future. Life was waiting for me, and I was ready to embrace it.